Until my death, I didn't realize that my husband avoided intimacy with me because he was deeply in love with my best friend. The two of them spent their lives yearning for each other, holding themselves back out of duty. My best friend's husband, Ethan, lived his entire life like a celibate monk. Upon reincarnation, I seized the opportunity and reached for Ethan's hand, saying, "I like you. Let's be together." Ethan's gaze darkened as he replied, "Perfect timing, so do I." We hit it off instantly. But this time, it was my husband and my best friend who weren't happy about it. One ravaged by lung cancer, I finally lost the last ounce of strength and closed my eyes for good. Yet my soul didn't disappear. It merely left my body. I watched from above as my husband, William just past his 40s, and my childhood best friend Sophie held each other tightly in the hospital room. They resembled a pair of doves necking, whispering their deepest feelings to one another. "William, don't be too sad. Rosie's gone now." "Sophie, thank goodness I still have you by my side. From now on, I'll take Rosie's place and always stay with you. I'll even have a child with you to keep you company. You don't need to replace anyone. The one I've always loved is you." "William, I love you too. Well, isn't this just wonderful? If I weren't a ghost now, I'd clap for this shameless couple." I remembered when Sophie's husband passed away from stomach cancer. She didn't seem particularly sad. Instead, it was my husband, William, who had red eyes and fussed over her every need, telling me that Sophie would be all alone from now on and that I should take care of her. At the time, I comforted her and she said, "Honestly, I've never loved Ethan in this lifetime. You don't know how envious I am of you, having William by your side." I was naive then and didn't catch the undertones of her words. I even hugged her and said, "We're all family. If it makes you happy, you can treat him like your husband." When I said this, I didn't notice William's hand trembling as he knocked over a plate, nor did I see Sophie gazing at him with affection. Looking back now, my words were far too inappropriate. 20 years of marriage, and I hadn't discovered they had been secretly involved all along. My resentment and frustration transformed into a powerful force, pulling my soul into a dark abyss. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the cafe 20 years ago. The four of us, myself, Sophie, William, and Ethan, were seated at a table during a dating meetup. Across from me, Ethan was still young, wearing delicate gold-framed glasses. His refined and handsome features seemed straight out of a comic book. In my previous life, Sophie had said she didn't like tall men. After the event, she had actively pursued Ethan, and the two quickly married. Meanwhile, I ended up with the rugged William by default. After countless walks together, we decided we were a good match and eventually tied the knot. But looking at William now, his gaze was clearly glued to Sophie the entire time. I decided to act first. Even if we couldn't end up together, saving Ethan from heartbreak would be a good deed. "Ethan, right? I think I like you. How about we go for a walk?" Sophie looked at me in shock. Normally, I'd let her have the first pick in situations like this. Across the table, Ethan didn't respond immediately. I thought he might reject me, but to my surprise, he said, "Sure." Ethan stood up and even picked up my bag for me. "Let's go." It wasn't until we had walked far from the cafe that I snapped out of it. I looked at him apologetically. "I'm sorry for saying something like that earlier. Please don't misunderstand. I didn't mean to." "Didn't mean to what?" Ethan smiled faintly, adjusting his glasses with his finger. "Rosalie doesn't want to go on a date with me." My rational thoughts were completely swept away by his smile, leaving only the sound of my pounding heart. Truth be told, Ethan's appearance didn't fit contemporary beauty standards. He was too refined and delicate, with a slender frame that didn't seem suited for physical labor. Yet as he looked at me, I heard the unmistakable sound of my heart skipping a beat. Ethan, you don't think I'm too plain?" Ethan chuckled at my words. "I think Rosalie is wonderful." Over the next few days, Sophie didn't reach out to me, likely busy falling in love with William. I didn't bother asking. My focus shifted entirely to dating Ethan. In this era, fleeting and fast-paced relationships weren't the norm. Dating mostly consisted of leisurely walks and conversations about life and dreams. One day, while talking about how I had to drop out of school to support my younger brother, I expressed regret. Ethan suddenly interrupted me. "Rosie, you should take the college entrance exams again." What? Take the exams again. Degrees will become increasingly important in the future." He was right. How had I missed this detail while being preoccupied with avoiding William and Sophie's drama? But having been a housewife for a lifetime, I felt completely out of touch with academics. I hesitated. Do you really think I can do it? He took my hand and replied, Trust me, Rosie, you absolutely can. When I got home and sat down, I heard someone shouting at the door. Walking outside, I saw Sophie standing there, her face full of anger. Rosalie, why are you stealing Ethan from me? Unlike me, who had aged prematurely from taking care of my siblings, Sophie was a lively and cheerful girl. She longed for a romance straight out of a soap opera. I had always assumed that Sophie and Ethan had grown apart after their marriage. After tying the knot, William and I had focused on our own lives, rarely delving deeply into theirs. William was a skilled worker with a decent income. Despite this, he didn't exhibit the typical machismo and was rather considerate. When I was pregnant, he would finish work early to cook for me. If I looked uncomfortable, he would massage my feet and chat about everyday matters with me. Sophie once caught a glimpse of this when she came over to visit. Envious, she remarked, Will really has a sweet tongue. I felt pleased but thought Ethan must be just as caring, so I replied, Your Ethan is an intellectual. I bet he's even sweeter when it comes to affection, right? Sophie, however, frowned and shook her head. Don't even start. He's just a bookworm. Looking at him annoys me. You have no idea. On our wedding day, he made sure to show me who was boss. He didn't say a single word to me, yet he thought he could touch me that night. Dream on, I was stunned. So, you two have never? Exactly, Sophie raised her head proudly. A woman's body and soul must be aligned to feel any joy. Otherwise, what's the difference between us and animals? At the time, I didn't know she had truly made Ethan live like a monk for the rest of his life. It wasn't until Ethan passed away from stomach cancer that Sophie tearfully confided her grievances to me. Thinking back, she must have despised Ethan, but why is she now acting like I stole her soulmate? I furrowed my brow and stared at Sophie. You like Ethan? And then, what about William? She opened her mouth but said nothing. I, however, understood everything. Oh, you resent me for choosing first. It doesn't matter who it is. As long as I picked them, you think they're good, right? Her face flushed red. You're talking nonsense. What kind of person do you take me for? Then what was the meaning of what you just said? She couldn't argue and started playing the victim. I don't care. I like Ethan now, and you have to give him to me. I laughed in frustration. I'm not your mom. Why should I give him to you? I wouldn't even give a pig or a dog the chance to hurt Ethan again, let alone this thankless brat. I stood my ground, leaving her stomping her feet in fury. She was about to say something when a cool voice interrupted us. Even if she were willing, I wouldn't agree. Ethan had returned, standing under a willow tree, his gaze icy. He sneered at Sophie. What do you think you are, trying to make decisions for me? Do you even deserve it? Sophie's face instantly turned red. She looked at Ethan with grievance, only to find he was entirely unmoved. Ethan walked over and handed me a set of books. I thought you might have trouble getting them, so I bought them for you. His considerate demeanor only fueled Sophie's jealousy to the point of madness. She turned her head and looked at me pitifully. Rosalie, we grew up together. I've always seen you as my big sister. Why are you competing with me over Ethan? I really want to be with him. Please, I'm begging you, let me have him, okay? She cried like a damsel in distress, utterly heartbroken. Ethan, however, chuckled coldly. Do you not understand English? I said even if she gave up, I'd never like you. There was no disguising the disdain in his tone. I instinctively glanced at him. Strange. At this point, he shouldn't even know Sophie well. I was lost in thought when Sophie stormed off angrily. Ethan turned back to me. You'd better not give me up to her. Got it? I nodded. All right. I took the books home, but before I could put them down, I felt a slap on the back of my head. Where did you get the money to buy books, you brat? My mom glared at me furiously. A friend gave them to me. What friend? I bet you're lying. Did you steal money from the family? Her face turned livid. Are you out of your mind? That money was meant to buy supplements for your brother. It's his weekend off, and I wanted to make him a nice meal, but you went and spent it. That day was so chaotic, I've forgotten most of it. All I remember is the next day when Ethan saw my bruised face, I felt a rare pang of embarrassment. Sorry, my mom returned the books you bought. His face darkened slightly. Don't worry, I'll make sure to pay you back. It's not the money I care about. He sighed but said nothing else. That evening, Ethan arrived at my house with several bags of fruit. I don't know what he discussed with my mom, but after he left, she was all smiles, telling me to prepare for marriage. Wow, I didn't expect my daughter to have such good taste, landing herself a professor. Rosie, when you succeed in life, don't forget to take care of your brother. I said nothing, watching her gleefully head into the kitchen. I figured I'd leave once I got into college anyway. Ethan and I got married. That day, the fruit he brought was his way of proposing. The wedding was rushed, but all the necessary formalities were observed. I sent invitations to both Sophie and William, but neither showed up. During the tea ceremony, Ethan's mother suddenly asked me to bow to the ancestors. Recalling Sophie's complaints about being humiliated, I felt a pang of apprehension. Still, I obeyed and knelt 3 times, hard enough to redden my forehead. This made Ethan's mom laugh. She gently rubbed my forehead and slid a jade bracelet onto my wrist. Our family is modest, and this is all we have. Take this heirloom as a gift. Wait, what? This was the humiliation Sophie talked about? I stared at the green jade bracelet, my emotions a mixture of confusion and gratitude. Ethan took my hand and said, "If Mom gave it to you, just take it." After the guests left and the toasts were done, the house fell silent. I sat on the wooden bed, feeling a bit shy, a rare feeling. To be honest, things have been strange ever since my miscarriage. William barely touched me after that. On the rare occasions he did, he'd smoke for a long time afterward while leaning against the headboard. It wasn't until after I died that I discovered my miscarriage had been caused by Sophie giving me blood-thinning medication without my knowledge. Ethan came out of the bathroom, having showered and changed into his pajamas. He carried a towel and walked over to help me dry my hands. His face was slightly flushed from the alcohol he drank earlier, and there was a seductive charm to his reddened lips and the corners of his eyes. "What's wrong? Lost in thought? Are you afraid of me?" he teased. I shook my head, brushing away the tangled emotions in my mind. Maybe it was better this way. No child meant fewer worries. "I'm more afraid of losing control of myself," I replied. Ethan chuckled softly. "Go take a shower. The hot water is ready for you." Blushing, I dawdled my way to the bathroom. Halfway through my shower, the lights suddenly went out. Startled, I let out a small yelp just as Ethan walked in, holding a candle. He froze for a moment, his voice husky when he spoke. My wife, always full of surprises. What followed felt inevitable, as though the flow of events had already been decided. His heat enveloped me, and I melted into him like water. Just as I was on the brink of blissful exhaustion, the lights flickered back on. Ethan's dark eyes were fixed on me, as if I were his entire world. In my previous life, I didn't interact with Ethan much, only seeing him as cold and aloof. Sophie had told me he was always busy with work after their marriage, often staying overnight at the university. From being a teacher to a professor, every penny he earned went to her. Sophie dressed extravagantly, spending her days sipping coffee and shopping, while Ethan only owned 2 sets of worn work clothes, even to his death. As these thoughts crossed my mind, a pang of bitterness rose in my chest. Ethan noticed my change in mood and leaned down to kiss me. "Rosie, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong?" I hugged him tighter. "You're perfect, honey. From now on, I'll be good to you. So good." He nibbled at my lips, murmuring something that sounded like a sigh. When I tried to listen closely, all I could hear was the sound of his breath. The next morning, it was no surprise that I couldn't get out of bed. Blushing furiously, I crawled out of the covers, only for Ethan to pull me back in. "What are you doing so early in the morning?" "I'm trying to make breakfast." He held me in his arms for a little longer before finally getting out of bed. "You were exhausted last night. Rest a bit more, I'll cook." Watching the red marks scattered across his back, I buried my face in the blanket in embarrassment. Being married to Ethan might not be the worst thing after all. Life with Ethan was so sweet that I almost forgot about Sophie. That is, until the day William showed up unexpectedly. To be honest, I rarely got angry with William, even across 2 lifetimes. For his time, he was a decent husband and a responsible father. Apart from not loving me, he didn't really have any major faults. But when he stood in front of me and told me to give Ethan back to Sophie, I lost it. The hatred was so overwhelming, I could barely contain it. "And what about me?" I snapped. William seemed stunned by my words. He opened his mouth, hesitating for a long moment before finally saying, I'll marry you." His tone grew firmer as he continued, "You two can get divorced and I'll marry you." I laughed bitterly. "And then what? Then we'll live a good life together," he added, as if that was supposed to be convincing. "Don't worry, I won't mind that you've been married before." If the heavens had X-ray vision, they'd see the giant question marks flooding my brain at this moment. I stared at him in disbelief. "Do you think you're better than Ethan? Why would I choose you?" He blurted out, "Because you owe Sophie. Excuse me." Back at the networking event, Sophie had her eye on Ethan first. "You were her best friend, how could you steal him away?" "Sophie cries at home every day. She's even fallen ill. If something happens to her, you'll be the one at fault." Now I was certain. These two people were absolutely insane. One loved taking things that didn't belong to her. The other was obsessed with self-sacrifice and self-righteousness. I took a deep breath to suppress my anger. "Get out right now, or I'll beat you to a pulp." "William, you and Sophie truly deserve each other. You're a match made in heaven. Lock yourselves together for life and stop bothering other people." "You average, self-centered jerk." William left with a few bruises, tripping over himself on the way out. I stood at the doorway, hands on my hips, laughing like a madwoman. Being the bad woman felt surprisingly liberating. When I turned around, I saw Ethan standing there with a box of pastries, watching me. Uh-oh. Had he overheard everything I said just now? Feeling awkward, I racked my brain for a way to explain myself. To my surprise, Ethan didn't bring it up at all, not even after dinner. Later that night, after showering, I knocked on the door to his study. Ethan was sitting in his chair, lost in thought. When he saw me, he beckoned me over. As soon as I walked over, he pulled me into his arms. He buried his face against my chest. "Honey, I want to confirm something." "What is it?" "Talking is one thing, but can we keep the hands to ourselves?" He nibbled on my earlobe and whispered hoarsely, "Digging, digging in the little garden." My mind was still foggy, wondering why his pace had suddenly accelerated. Then, like a flash of lightning, realization struck me. Eyes wide, I shouted, "Ethan!" He covered my mouth quickly and whispered, "Keep your voice down, my parents are asleep." My heart was racing so fast I thought I might throw up. The moment of intimacy was replaced by shock and disbelief as I looked at him. "Are you saying?" He nodded. "Yes, I've been reborn." That explained so much. That's why he agreed to meet me so readily that day, why he had an inexplicable hostility toward Sophie, and why he insisted I take the college entrance exams. I was so overwhelmed that tears nearly fell from my eyes. This is amazing, truly amazing. The tragic fall of someone so brilliant had always left a bitterness in my heart, a sense of unresolved injustice. But now it seemed the heavens had finally taken pity and given Ethan a second chance. I leaned into his arms and slowly embraced him. He tightened his grip, carrying me into the bedroom. As we lay down, our bodies fit together seamlessly. His arms, strong and secure, gave me a deep sense of comfort and stability. As I closed my eyes, pondering for a moment, I decided to ask what had been weighing on my mind. What really happened between you and Sophie back then? Sophie had told me many unpleasant things about Ethan, how he was cold, uncommunicative, solitary, and even arrogantly intolerable. I had always assumed these were the reasons their relationship didn't work out. But Ethan told me the truth. He had been deceived into marrying her from the start. At first, I thought she genuinely liked me, but on the night of our wedding, she refused to be with me. She cried, saying my mom had humiliated her with a bracelet. I tried explaining to her again and again that my mom didn't mean it that way, but she wouldn't listen. Later on, I humiliated myself begging her to understand, but every time she deliberately mocked me in front of others. When I was diagnosed with cancer, she confessed that she had regretted being with me shortly after we got together. She only stayed because she couldn't bear to give up the status of being married to a professor. She drained my entire life away. Even after I died, she wouldn't let me have peace. My body hadn't even been taken to the funeral home before she clung to Will, crying into his arms. They were kissing, openly displaying their affection. She told Will how much she hated me, claiming she must have been blind to have chosen me. But when I think about it, I was just as foolish wasting my entire life on her. Ethan spoke about these events as though recounting someone else's story. Yet I knew he felt just as hurt as I did, if not more. I patted his shoulder gently. "Don't say any more, I already know." It was because I knew that I felt even more heartache for him. Ethan kissed my forehead tenderly and suddenly said, "Actually, that day I saw it." "What?" I propped myself up, only to have him lift my chin and kiss me deeply. "I saw you use your handkerchief to cover the hole in my shirt," he murmured. In his previous life, Ethan had succumbed to cancer. Unlike other cancer patients, he had looked as if he was merely asleep. Just beyond the wall, Sophie had been complaining to someone. "He's so selfish, leaving me widowed at such a young age. My life has been so miserable because of him." Seeing the man in the coffin, wearing a shirt with visible tears, I couldn't help feeling suffocated. Ethan was exceptional in every way, yet his marriage had been a disaster, leaving him lonely for most of his life. Sophie, his wife, was my best friend, so I didn't feel it was my place to say anything. I took out the handkerchief I always carried with me, folded it, and tucked it into his shirt, trying to give him one final semblance of dignity. Recalling this moment, Ethan's voice caught in his throat. He held me tightly, deepening the kiss until tears fell from his eyes. "Rosie, thank God I have you. In this life, let's live our days well together." Holding on to him for a while, I teased him, "Your old stories are way too outdated. Digging up things from ages ago, really?" His face turned slightly red as he scratched his head. "A student told me." I began to focus all my energy on preparing for my college entrance exams, while Ethan bought books to start learning computer science. The next few decades were going to be an era of rapid internet development. We couldn't afford to miss this opportunity. In the midst of our hard work, we heard the news that Sophie and William were getting married. She sent a wedding invitation through someone else, asking me to join the celebration. Having shared so many years of friendship with her almost like sisters, I never thought we'd end up estranged because of a man. This time, I wanted to see if marrying William would finally bring her happiness. On the wedding day, she wore a red dress, her expression unreadable. William, on the other hand, was radiant with joy, drinking from one end of the table to the other. Drunk and stumbling, he tried to hold Sophie's hand, but she sidestepped him. I watched everything unfold, feeling an indescribable mix of emotions. Around 4 o'clock, Ethan finished his class and came to pick me up. He was wearing the shirt and trousers I had recently bought him, looking exceptionally handsome. I couldn't resist stealing a couple of kisses. As I climbed onto his bike, my gaze accidentally met Sophie's. She had noticed Ethan too, and a flicker of astonishment flashed in her eyes. But Ethan kept his eyes on me, smiling as he adjusted the hem of my pants. "Let's go," he said. A few days later, Sophie showed up at my house, knocking on the door. Awkwardly, she apologized. "Rosie, I was wrong. Please don't ignore me." I didn't say anything, simply letting her in to sit for a while. From that day on, it was as if she had forgotten our conflict. She started visiting my house frequently, sometimes lingering around mealtimes. "Is Ethan still not home from work? He must be so busy," she'd remark, glancing at the door. The Ethan she referred to had been avoiding her for a week, staying late at school to teach evening classes. I didn't expose her little schemes, merely smiled and said, "He's been busy with work lately. He might be home a bit late." Sophie let out an "oh," her expression tinged with disappointment. I glanced at her and said, "William should be home soon. Shouldn't you go back and make him dinner?" She pouted, "He can fend for himself. Always coming home smelling awful, then acting like a king expecting me to serve him? Ha, he wishes." I chuckled but said nothing. After Sophie left, Ethan finally dared to come out. He frowned slightly. "When are you going to fall out with her? I spend all day at the university and miss you so much." It seemed like Ethan had been holding back for 2 lifetimes. The Ethan now was like a mischievous cat who couldn't stop himself. He stuck to me constantly, whispering sweet nothings that sometimes made me blush. I playfully pushed him away. "Once I finish my exams and you get your certification, we'll move to New York. It's better not to stir up trouble with the neighbors right now." Ethan kissed me and said, "All right, whatever my wife says." Despite Ethan's best efforts to avoid her, Sophie eventually ran into him. One rare weekend morning, Sophie came knocking on our door bright and early. The moment she stepped in, she saw Ethan sitting on the couch. Her face flushed, and she quickly moved closer. "Professor Ethan, what are you doing?" He glanced toward the kitchen where I was, instinctively shifting away from her. Sophie, however, didn't seem bothered at all and sat right next to him. "Oh, I heard you're a teacher. There are some words in my books I don't understand. Could you teach me?" She was wearing a wrap dress, her neckline revealing more than necessary. Ethan's expression darkened, his eyes filled with restrained anger. He stood abruptly, his voice cold. "Miss Sophie, please respect yourself. My wife is just in the kitchen." Without hesitation, he walked away, leaving Sophie standing there, tears welling in her eyes. She bit her lip in frustration and turned, only to meet my cool gaze. Her instinctive guilt was apparent as she stammered, "Rosie, you're done in the kitchen?" I nodded casually. "Yep. If I weren't, I wouldn't have seen this little drama unfold." "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Sophie feigned ignorance, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. "Rosie, why do you have so many books at home? Are they Ethan's?" "No, they're mine. I'm preparing for my exams." Predictably, Sophie's face shifted slightly. She forced a smile. "Why? You're already married. Why put yourself through that? Is Ethan treating you poorly?" I shrugged. "Not at all. He wants me to take the exams. He said once I pass, he'll help me find a position at the university." Sophie's face fell instantly. Deep down, she had always thought she was better than me, instinctively comparing herself to me in everything. In the past, I didn't understand her motives. I valued our friendship and would yield to her whims and flatter her to make her happy. But even then, she still managed to do things like cozying up to my husband by my graveside. Looking back, how much of William's indifference toward her came from her own suggestions. How proud must she have been, knowing my husband stayed loyal to her. "Sophie, since you love competing so much, I'll make sure you can never win against me again." She didn't contact me for several days after leaving. I focused entirely on my studies. When I visited my mom, I overheard her talking about how Sophie had been arguing with her husband. Apparently, Sophie wanted to take the exams too. William, being a tradesman, didn't really understand the process. He simply thought, if she wants to study, let her, and bought her some books. But after just 2 days of studying, Sophie felt overwhelmed and frustrated, eventually picking a fight with William. She even hit him over the head with a pan, leaving him with a nasty wound. Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. The thought of it put me in an even better mood, and I dove back into my studies with renewed focus. The night before my exam, Sophie unexpectedly came by. She brought a pot of chicken soup, saying she wanted to cheer me on. "Rosie, I made this especially for you. It's from a hen my mother-in-law raised for 3 years. Its flavor is incredible. You should try it." I studied the golden soup carefully. "I think I'll pass." "Why? Are you afraid I added something to it?" Sophie blurted defensively. "Ha, guilty much?" I shrugged. "Yep, afraid you might have drugged it." Sophie was furious, her eyes flashing with resentment before quickly masking it with a smile. "We've been friends for over 10 years and you still don't trust me? That's so hurtful. Look, I'll drink it first to prove it." She poured herself a bowl and gulped it down. Then she poured another and pushed it toward me. "See. Now do you trust me?" Watching her desperate attempts to please me, I couldn't help but smile. "I believe you," but before I could finish, Ethan's voice came from behind me. "Rosie, Mom's calling you. Hurry back." All right, I didn't bother sparing Sophie another glance as I cheerfully bade her goodbye and followed Ethan back inside. The next day, Ethan took time off to accompany me to my exam. When I came out, he handed me a thermos. Sophie had food poisoning all night and ended up in the hospital. With that level of intelligence, how did she trick me for over 20 years? I smiled and looked at Ethan. "Don't worry, you weren't her only victim." My teasing made Ethan laugh as well. He reached out to wipe a drop of water from the corner of my mouth. "True, we're a couple who have weathered the same storm, both caught in the same mess. Let William enjoy all the blessings from now on. We'll just focus on living our good life." Ethan and I walked home slowly, hand in hand. As we reached the front door, we saw a big-headed chicken squatting by the doorstep. "William, what are you doing here?" It was unsettling to see him curled up like that in the dark. William's expression shifted when he saw me. He rushed forward as if to embrace me, but upon noticing Ethan and me holding hands, he stopped abruptly and took 2 steps back. "Why?" he demanded. I was baffled. "Why what?" He stared at me intensely. "Why did you choose him?" "Obviously because he's handsome and has a great figure," I replied matter-of-factly. No, that's not it. You were supposed to be my wife." He grabbed my hand, his cold palm gripping me with shocking strength. "Rosalie, you should have married me, don't you remember? We even had a child together." It dawned on me William had been reborn as well. Ethan immediately stepped in, shielding me behind him. "William, what's wrong with you barging into someone's home in the middle of the night? Let go of my wife." "You shut up, she's my wife," William shouted, his voice trembling with rage. "We lived together for 20 years, I buried her. When she died, who the hell are you to take her from me?" I couldn't hold back anymore. I raised my hand and slapped William hard across the face. "You still remember I was your wife?" I hissed through clenched teeth. "Then tell me, William, when you were whispering sweet nothings to Sophie in front of my corpse, did you forget me then? Wasn't she your true love? Didn't you stay pure for her? Didn't you emotionally abuse me?" "William, I was married to you for 20 years. Do you even have the faintest idea how you treated me? Why did I die? Why did I get lung cancer? Wasn't it because you spent every day pining for Sophie, smoking in our bedroom, and poisoning me with your neglect? I was only 40 years old, you bastard." The bitterness from my previous life surged through me, making my body tremble with rage. This weak, pathetic excuse of a man had bullied me through his passive aggression for decades. And now, he dared to come to me acting self-righteous. "Let me ask you, William, if it hadn't been for Sophie, would I have miscarried our child?" My words nearly knocked him off his feet. His face was a mix of terror, regret, and sorrow, which finally crumbled into uncontrollable sobs. He collapsed to his knees in front of me. "I'm sorry. Rosalie, it was my fault. Please forgive me. I can't live without you." The man before me was clad in a filthy work uniform, reeking of sweat. Judging by his appearance, his life with Sophie had not been going well. It was nothing like the life he had when we were together: hot meals, warm teas, and me catering to his every need like a pampered king. Was he longing for me now, or was he just missing the domestic care of a housewife? I doubted even William knew the answer. Ethan and I exchanged a cold glance as we watched him cry. Then Ethan stepped forward and pried William's hand off mine. "If you truly love Rosie, I'm willing to compete with you fairly," Ethan said, his tone icy. "But that's only if you're a free man. Right now, your wife is still waiting for you in the hospital. Get lost and take care of her. Don't stand here and tarnish Rosie's reputation with your nonsense." Ethan pulled me inside and shut the door firmly. Once we reached a secluded spot, I leaned closer to him. "If William does get a divorce, would you really be willing to let me go?" Ethan pinned me against the wall and kissed me deeply. "That was just to fool him. Don't even think about it, you're mine." When college entrance exam results were announced, I got accepted into a university in New York City. After discussing it with Ethan and his parents, we decided to sell our house and move the entire family to New York. While packing, I overheard that Sophie had asked William for a divorce. This time, William didn't try to stop her, and the two quickly finalized the paperwork. In our small town, divorce was considered scandalous, and rumors flew about who had cheated on whom. While I was out buying groceries, Sophie sneaked into our house. Because we were in the midst of moving, the door was left wide open. She went straight upstairs, where Ethan was organizing his books. When Ethan turned around, he saw Sophie lying naked on the bed, startling him out of his wits. "What are you doing? Are you insane? Put your clothes on." But Sophie was unfazed. She stood up and approached him step by step. "Darling, I know you've come back too. I was wrong in our past life. I shouldn't have ignored you." She had dolled herself up with makeup and a fresh hairstyle, confident that her figure was superior to mine. As she advanced toward Ethan, her gaze was seductive and alluring. She thought, men are simple creatures. A little coaxing, a little teasing, and they'll come around. That's how I made William abandon everyone for me in our last life, even while Rosalie was right under his nose. Surely, this uptight professor won't be any different. But she underestimated Ethan's pride and moral integrity. His face darkened, and he bolted downstairs. Once outside, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Whose sow has gone astray? It's wandered into my house." It happened to be early evening, and people returning from work were chatting in clusters near the street. Hearing Ethan's words, they rushed inside to see what was going on. Sophie didn't even have time to get dressed and was exposed to everyone present: men, women, young and old. When I returned with my groceries, I heard screams coming from inside the house. Amid the uproarious laughter, Sophie ran out wrapped in a bedsheet. As she passed me, she shot me a venomous glare. I immediately realized what had happened and instinctively looked for Ethan, only to see him leaning casually against the wall with his arms crossed, watching me. The crowd of onlookers buzzed around us, but despite the chaos, our eyes met from a distance. His lips curved slightly into a smirk, and he silently mouthed to me, "Come here." I squeezed through the crowd and walked over to him. Behind me, the dispersing spectators whispered amongst themselves, commenting on Sophie's legs and figure. Yet I was completely immersed in Ethan's tenderness. He took my hand and, like presenting a treasure, kissed me lightly. "Sweetheart, I've settled our score today," he said proudly. "What a fool," I laughed, gently ruffling his hair. "You've done wonderfully, Professor Ethan," staying calm and collected. "Well then, you'd better reward me properly tonight." Idle gossip spread like wildfire, and before long, the entire town was mocking Sophie. Sophie's parents were deeply embarrassed and locked her inside their house, beating her severely. My mom later told me that her father hadn't held back, and the stick left scars on Sophie's face that might never heal. I got accepted into a university in New York City, and Ethan was admitted to the same school. I majored in literature, while he pursued computer science. After graduation, he stayed on for his doctoral studies, and I chose a promising job at a leading company. In our first year after graduating, we bought our first home, a comfortable 4-bedroom apartment, and brought Ethan's parents to live with us. With a good budget, the spacious layout felt luxurious. 2 years later, Ethan stayed on as a faculty member at the university, and we saved up enough money to buy a small apartment while housing prices were still reasonable. During this time, I became pregnant, but due to complications, I decided to take an extended leave to rest at home. Ethan's parents were talented professionals of their era. Despite their age, they still held respectable positions. Worried about disturbing us, they moved into housing provided by their workplace. Ethan and I settled into a peaceful and happy rhythm of life. To make up for the regrets of our past life, I often bought Ethan clothes, dressing him to look dashing and stylish. His students often complimented him on his charisma, but Ethan didn't seem to care much. He let me fuss over him, indulging my whims, only to negotiate for his own way to pamper me once I was satisfied. In our past life, both Ethan and I succumbed to cancer. Because of this, we made it a habit to get annual health checkups, and so far, the results had been great. I knew my lung cancer had been caused by secondhand smoke, but I never understood why Ethan had developed cancer. It wasn't until a doctor explained to me that the stomach and intestines are strongly affected by emotions, and prolonged stress can lead to illness. Ethan hugged me and said, "Maybe I'm just so happy in this life that my stomach is in perfect health." Still, I imposed a strict diet plan for him. 5 years into our marriage, our love hadn't waned with time but had grown even stronger. 7 months into my pregnancy, Ethan accompanied me to a prenatal checkup. As we stepped into the hospital lobby, we heard a familiar pair of voices arguing. Not far away, Sophie, heavily pregnant, was pointing at the man across from her, yelling furiously, "Useless, can't even support your wife, and child, what kind of man are you?" The scar on her cheek moved up and down as she spoke, making her appearance even more haunting. The man roared back, "Shut up if it weren't for you insisting I quit my job and move to LA. I wouldn't have gotten into that car accident and lost my hand. Now I can't find work, and you have the nerve to look down on me? I'm telling you, everything is your fault, you damn jinx." It was William. After all the twists and turns, they were still together. William looked disheveled. His face darkened with grime, and his right sleeve hung empty. His expression twisted with rage as he tried to strike Sophie. "It's all your fault, all your fault. I could have had a wonderful wife, a stable job. We'd own a house and a car, and I'd be a respected chief engineer in the industry. You ruined everything." Held back by others, the overwhelming sense of helplessness finally broke him. William collapsed to his knees, clutching his head, tears streaming down his face, whether out of regret or sorrow was unclear. "Why did you come back to find me? Why?" Even now, he believed everything was Sophie's fault alone. Sophie's eyes were cold and indifferent as she responded icily, "I knew it. You still can't let go of Rosie. If you liked her so much, why didn't you pursue her? Why did you insist on staying with me last time? You're the kind of man who wants it all, the pot and the plate. You deserve to lose your hand. This is karma." As her words fell, our eyes met. This time, she didn't storm over to cause trouble. Instead, she turned and headed upstairs. William knelt on the floor for a long time before leaving, his expression blank. Ethan and I exchanged a glance, silently agreeing to pretend we hadn't seen anything. After finishing the checkup, Ethan wrapped his arm around me as we walked down the stairs. Honey, it's so good to have you. This man, I laughed, giving his hand a playful squeeze. You're wonderful too, my love. I knew, just like me, Ethan felt a pang of nostalgia seeing that scene. Two people, once lonely and misunderstood, had been given a second chance at life, finding love and family. How could it not feel like a dream? As if wanting to anchor each other, we held hands tightly, our warmth intertwining, gradually settling our hearts. Just as we stepped outside the hospital doors, a loud noise erupted. Oh my God, someone jumped? Quick, quick, call the doctor, this man is bleeding heavily. Look, he's missing his left hand. Could it be that life was too hard for him to bear? Where are his family? Who knows? Although I caught sight of that familiar shade of brown out of the corner of my eye, Ethan and I both tacitly avoided looking back. When we reached the parking spot, Ethan opened the passenger side door for me. He fastened my seatbelt, kissed me gently, and then pulled out a blanket from the side to drape over my legs. Let's go home, sweetheart, he said. All right. Off we go, baby, let's head home for dinner. Behind us, one after another, medical staff dressed in white rushed out. Life or death, they remained a mystery. At the same time, Sophie, who was also visibly pregnant, jogged past us hurriedly. The car drove further and further away. In the end, our paths were never meant to cross. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. Ethan took me to meet his first love, Olivia, whom he had grown up with. While Ethan went to the restroom, Olivia handed me her phone filled with green chat bubbles. I glanced at the screen and froze. The messages were a series of heartfelt thoughts sent by Ethan in the middle of the night, words full of tenderness and longing that he had never once shared with me. After dinner, Ethan left me stranded on the roadside. Sophia lives far away. I'll drop her off first. You can walk home yourself. Before I could say anything, his car sped off. I stood there completely at a loss. My phone was dead, and the rain began to fall lightly. Clutching my stomach, I braved the 4-mile walk back to my apartment in the drizzle. Ethan never returned that night. My phone buzzed, delivering a photo of scattered children's medicine. I stayed up all night, staring at my screen. By dawn, I typed out 2 simple words. It's over. Ethan outright dismissed me. You know I hate when you girls pull this kind of stunt. Think carefully before you say those words. Once they're out, there's no turning back. What he didn't know was that I had no regrets. Later, Ethan traveled all the way to the northern states, enduring the freezing cold that sent him to the hospital, just to see me for one fleeting moment. Liv, you promised you would love me forever. What does it feel like to discover that the person you've loved for so long never truly loved you? When Sophie handed me her phone, I was utterly stunned. The screen was filled with Ethan's confessions and longing 100, maybe 200-word mini-essays, one after another. Among them, one message stood out. Ethan's deepest secret, his family issues. I took a deep breath, feeling my head flush, my chest tighten, and my fingertips tremble. Across from me, Sophie's lips curled into a faint smile, her eyes brimming with triumph. Miss Olivia, why such a reaction? Could it be that Ethan has never shared these words with you? Ethan had been my boyfriend for 2 years. She was right. I had never heard any of this from him. Sophie's voice was soft, yet it carried a biting sarcasm that stung deeply. The messages stopped at the night Ethan had been drinking heavily. Sophie asked, "Have you shared these words with her?" Ethan replied instantly with a voice memo, his tone anxious and stuttering. "Of course not, why would I tell her these things? These are my innermost thoughts, you know that I only share them with you." Sophie seemed satisfied, responding with a cute emoji. Good boy, Ethan. The her in question was me. That night, Ethan returned home reeking of alcohol, stumbling into my arms as soon as he walked through the door. Leaning against me, he sniffed my scent and barely opened his eyes before letting out a mocking laugh. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Wrong about what? Before I could ask, Ethan stormed out the door. He was always like this, never telling me why he was upset or what was troubling him. He never liked me being involved in his world, and I had long stopped trying to guess. 2 years' worth of messages were swiped through in mere minutes. I didn't even know how to react. Even through the screen, I could feel Ethan's overwhelming love for Sophie. What was there left for me to say? Ethan had willingly given Sophie everything, his heart, his finances, even the vulnerable parts of himself he felt ashamed of. These were all things he had guarded against me. I opened my mouth but couldn't utter a single word. Sophie chuckled, withdrawing her phone and disdainfully wiping the screen with a wet tissue. Noticing my gaze, her smile deepened. "Miss Olivia, please don't take offense. I have severe germophobia. I dislike having my belongings tainted by unpleasant odors." Ethan returned at that moment, smelling of smoke. He walked past me without a glance and sat next to Sophie, smiling warmly. When the two looked at each other, their eyes were filled with undeniable affection. They looked like the perfect couple, if Ethan weren't my boyfriend. Sophie teased him a little before wrinkling her nose and leaning closer to sniff his shoulder. She frowned with displeasure. Ethan, ever perceptive of Sophie's mood, sheepishly rubbed his nose. "Sorry, Sophie, I couldn't resist just now." He took off his jacket and sniffed it himself. "Yeah, the smoke smell is pretty strong, but I don't have anywhere to change right now. Here's what I'll do." He reluctantly moved to sit next to me, flashing Sophie a big smile. "I'll stay here until the smell dissipates. Don't want you breathing in second-hand smoke." Sophie playfully shook her fist. "As if you dare let me inhale second-hand smoke." The heavy smell of smoke overwhelmed my senses, and my already tight chest forced me to cough. Ethan glanced at me with slight annoyance. "It's just a little smoke. Stop being so dramatic." I looked at Ethan in disbelief, but he didn't care about my unhappiness. He continued to focus solely on serving Sophie food. He had always been like this, never caring about my emotions. Once, I was filled with doubts. I couldn't understand why Ethan never tried to comfort me after an argument, why he seemed so indifferent to my feelings. The response I got was always the same. "Olivia, how old are you? Adults are independent individuals, don't you understand? Do you expect me to carry you around like a child?" I thought that was just Ethan's nature, that he was simply blunt and straightforward. But as I recalled the pages of chat history, and the scene just now where Ethan instinctively noticed Sophia's mood change, my nose tingled, and I nearly burst into tears. I sniffled, trying to suppress the sadness and grievance welling up inside me. At the dinner table, Ethan and Sophia were chatting away, completely immersed. Their favorite topic seemed to be Sophia's little quirks. "Do you remember why you got upset for the very first time when we were together?" Ethan asked, smiling. Sophia thought for a moment and then shook her head. "Nope, can't remember." Ethan chuckled happily, shifting closer to her. "I knew you wouldn't remember. It was because I forgot to bring you hot water." "You've forgotten, but I remember everything about you so clearly." Sophia started laughing, but her laughter soon turned into tears. "Ethan, thank you. Only you would go along with all my little whims like this." Ethan gently wiped her tears, his voice soft and tender. "Don't just talk about putting up with them for a moment. I'd gladly indulge you for a lifetime." The two gazed at each other, their eyes brimming with affection, completely forgetting the presence of anyone else around them. I felt like someone who had bought a ticket to a movie, watching the love story of these main characters unfold from beginning to end. To say I wasn't hurt would be a lie. My tears flowed, dried, and flowed again, accompanied by frequent sniffles. But Ethan was so focused on his first love that, to him, the current partner didn't matter. Because I didn't matter, I was conveniently ignored. The two basked in their affection for quite a while before Sophia suddenly snapped out of it, embarrassedly covering her face. "Oh gosh, sorry, Olivia." Ethan and I got carried away and hugged for a moment while feeling emotional. "I completely forgot you were here." "My apologies, but don't worry, Ethan and I are absolutely innocent now." I let out a cold laugh. "Innocent now? What about when I'm not around?" Sophia froze for a moment, and Ethan's face instantly darkened. "Don't mind her. She's like a block of wood," he muttered before turning to me with obvious frustration. "Olivia, are you insane or something? If Sophia and I had anything going on, why would I bring you out to meet her?" I sneered. "Exactly, why would you?" My voice was heavy with nasal congestion, raspy and strained. Perhaps noticing the tears in my eyes, Ethan faltered for a moment. I sniffled again, wiped my tears, and kept silent. The atmosphere turned awkward, and silence hung over the table. If Ethan cared about me even a little at that moment, he would have noticed my empty water glass while pouring water for Sophia. If he cared even a bit more, he would have realized I hadn't touched my food while he was busy serving Sophia dishes. After the meal ended, Ethan dragged me along to settle the bill, muttering under his breath. I thought bringing you out to meet Sophia would inspire you to learn some good qualities from her. But instead, all you've got in your head is petty competition. I really don't understand how two women can be so different. One's a pure, flawless goddess. The other is just a crazy woman who throws fits over trivial nonsense. My heart sank suddenly. A goddess versus a lunatic, the words echoed in my mind, refusing to dissipate. By the time I snapped back to reality, Ethan had already left me by the roadside. He gallantly opened the passenger door for Sophia, who gracefully slid into the seat. As the car started, Ethan threw me one last sentence without even glancing my way. Sophia lives far away. I'll drop her off first. You can walk home on your own. Sophia rolled down the window, her face full of smiles. Bye-bye. Before I could respond, Ethan pressed her head back inside, his tone dripping with affection. All right, buckle up, my little sweetheart. Why are you even bothering to say goodbye to her? Before I could say anything, the car sped off into the night. I stood there, holding my phone, which had died due to a drained battery, feeling utterly at a loss. It was already past midnight. Though the streetlights cast a faint glow, the sight of a few drunken men wandering ahead, mumbling nonsense, made me uneasy. To make matters worse, it started to drizzle. The restaurant wasn't too far from my apartment, but not exactly close either, about 2.5 miles away. With no other choice, I used my bag to cover my head and ran in the rain, clutching my aching stomach until I finally reached home. Cold raindrops splashed against my face, chilling me to the bone and deep into my heart. I couldn't hold back anymore. Tears mixed with rain streamed down my face. When Ethan and I first got together, he was young and hot-headed. He had a fallout with his family, and on top of that, got into trouble. His right hand was fractured, the bones crushed. Penniless and too proud to ask his father for help, I emptied my savings to pay for his surgery and hospital stay. The operation, costing tens of thousands of dollars, saved his hand. During recovery, the doctor warned him to avoid heavy lifting in the future. At that time, Ethan felt like he was a complete failure. He refused to see anyone and casually moved into a private hospital room that cost $3,000 per day. Forget about other expenses at the hospital. I took care of everything for him, from delivering meals to helping him clean up, even until he was discharged. Back then, he held my face gently and said, "Olivia, I'll never forget how good you've been to me. From now on, you're my right hand. I promise to cherish you always." The more I thought about it, the more wronged I felt, and tears blurred my vision. It had only been 1.5 years since that day. Damn you, Ethan, how could you treat me like this? When I got back to the apartment, I was drenched and my face was pale from the cold. After taking a shower, I popped a few ibuprofen, hoping to ease the period cramps. Maybe it was because of being caught in the rain, but the medicine didn't work. I was in pain until 4 or 5 in the morning, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. That night, Ethan never came back. At dawn, while searching for a heating pad, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text from Ethan. My gaze froze on the photo he sent. Scattered condoms littered on the floor, used wrappers strewn around the trash can under dim lighting, with one still hanging off the edge of the bin. A milky white liquid dripped onto the floor. I couldn't hold it back. Waves of nausea hit me as I dry heaved uncontrollably, feeling as though my heart might leap out of my chest. After splashing water on my face, I forced down the nausea and lay back in bed. I sat there all night, my eyes swollen and sore from crying. A chilling emptiness spread from my heart to my entire body. It was so cold. I developed a high fever, yet my mind was eerily clear. As the sky lightened, I sent him a text with just 2 words. "We're done." He didn't reply. He was probably still lost in the warmth of someone else's embrace. Not that it mattered whether he replied or not. When I said we're done, it wasn't up for discussion, it was a notification. Ethan's perspective when he woke up. Ethan found himself holding a naked Sophia in his arms. The marks on his body and the dried stains on the sheets painted an explicit picture of the passion they shared the night before. Lighting a cigarette, a vague unease crept into his chest. The unease soon turned into amusement. It was just one night away. Olivia, that good girl, wouldn't have a clue about what he'd been up to. Besides, she loved him so much. Even if she got angry, she would calm herself down eventually. That's just how Olivia was. She never required much effort from him, and being with her was effortless. He got out of bed, still naked, and slowly plugged his phone into charge. Taking his time, he opened the messaging app. The words, "We're done," glared back at him in the chat window. Chuckling, he extinguished his cigarette and casually replied with a single period. A red exclamation mark popped up next to his message. "Interesting," he muttered. Olivia had never thrown such a tantrum before, had she? After a moment of hesitation, he decided to turn off his phone altogether. Why bother indulging her temper? She'd come back begging before long. He knew how much she loved him. In the past, when he flirted with other girls, drank with them, or rested his head on their laps, Olivia had gotten angry but eventually forgiven him with a smile. The warm body pressed against him reignited his desire. He turned around, pulling Sophia into his arms. Round 2, when Ethan returned to the apartment, I was packing up my belongings. He kicked at the suitcase and bags on the floor, laughing dismissively. "Hey, you're seriously going through with this breakup? Getting all dramatic and packing your stuff?" I didn't reply, and Ethan lit a cigarette, blowing smoke rings in my direction. "You know I hate it when women pull this kind of stunt. You better think it through once those words are out. There's no going back. I won't regret it." "What did you say?" Ethan hadn't heard me clearly. I took a deep breath, looked him in the eyes, and enunciated every word. "I won't regret it." Ethan froze, his cigarette hand pausing midair. He frowned, staring at me for a long moment. Then he smirked, extinguished his cigarette, and stood up. "Fine. I'll see if you actually move out today. I don't believe for a second you can really leave me." "Ha. Olivia, I've told you before I hate the word breakup." He was angry, slamming the door as he left. Inside, I felt completely calm, though my chest was tight with suppressed emotion. Ethan was filthy. What made him think I couldn't live without him? Still, the self-deprecating laugh escaped me. To be fair, Ethan wasn't entirely wrong. After all, I'd silently forgiven him for countless atrocious things in the past. Even after catching him hiring escorts at a hotel, enduring 2 months of his silent treatment, I'd been the one to try to reconcile with him. How could I have been so stupid, so pathetic before? I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes and gulped down some water. Recalling all the moments he hurt me, my heart didn't ache anymore. It didn't even feel heavy. Finally, I could let go of this toxic relationship. I booked a flight to the northern states. I'd always wanted to visit the real-life version of Unity Hill and the snowy, bare ridge in winter. But Ethan had flaked on me so many times that the trip kept getting postponed. Looking at the flight ticket now, I felt lighthearted and at ease. No more worrying about being stood up last minute. As I stepped out the door, I glanced back at the apartment. It was almost empty. The moving crew stood beside me, sighing. "Miss, is your lease up? You've cleared out everything, huh?" I smiled faintly, not bothering to explain. Of course, I had to move out. Everything here was bought by me. I'd already taken enough losses and endured enough grievances with Ethan. From the high-end furniture worth thousands of dollars to the pots, pans, clothes, shoes, and belts that cost hundreds. Whoever spends the money feels the pain. There was no way I'd leave them behind for Ethan's benefit. As for Ethan's stuff, it couldn't even fill a single cardboard box. I told the movers to place that box in the middle of the living room, where Ethan would see it the moment he came home. I found out about Ethan's plane ticket purchase while changing the password to one of my accounts. He had logged into my travel booking account and bought 2 tickets for an international trip for himself and Sophia. I sat there silently for a moment before canceling the tickets and changing the account password. In the 2 years we'd been together, Ethan and I had shared quite a few accounts. The shameless part? He had used the money from a savings account I'd set up for him to pay for those tickets. That account had $5,000 I had set aside for him during a time when he was broke after his surgery, meant as an emergency fund for the future. Over the past 2 years, Ethan had been at odds with his family. I didn't know the exact details. He never shared those things with me. But I guessed that if he weren't estranged from his family, he wouldn't have been using my money to buy tickets or cover his living expenses. This was Ethan's way. Whenever he was short on money, he'd spend mine without hesitation. And when I didn't have money to give, he'd use my ID to take out loans online. I had caught him doing this once. Luckily, he didn't know my bank account details at the time, so the loan didn't go through. Ethan had promised repeatedly that it was a one-time thing, just an experiment. Even so, I became extra cautious, keeping my bank cards well hidden. It's lucky I had some sense back then and didn't burn all my bridges. Fortunately, the account he had used for the plane tickets was still linked to my backup phone number, so I was able to log in and get the refund. When the refund came through, I checked the balance. Thankfully, there wasn't much of a loss. The missing $500. I just consider it a parting gift for a stray dog. After cutting ties with all our shared accounts, I put down my phone and prepared to board my flight. That's when Ethan called. Hesitating for a moment, I picked up. I heard the flick of a lighter on the other end, followed by Ethan's calm voice. "Did you change the password to the travel booking account?" "Yeah, is there an issue?" He paused for a moment. "Add me on messaging. Approve my request and send me the verification code." Before I could respond, he hung up. A friend request popped up on my screen. Without hesitation, I hit ignore, turned off my phone, and boarded the plane in one swift motion. By the time I landed in Albany, it was already 8 p.m. My phone showed over 20 missed calls, all from Ethan. Blocking his number, I grabbed my luggage and walked out of the airport. Emma had been waiting for a while, sitting in her car. She had moved to a snowy town after working for 2 years post-graduation. After settling into the hotel for the night, Emma and I explored Central Avenue and sent Sophia Cathedral the next day. The 3D display on Central Avenue looked even more stunning in real life than on a screen. Under the falling snow, St. Sophia Cathedral felt like the beginning of romance and happiness. As we were skiing, Emma grabbed my hand and sighed. "You should have moved here with me back then, but hey, it's not too late now. With me as your guide, you won't regret a single moment." She added fiercely, "As for that idiot Ethan, Olivia, if you're still thinking about him, our friendship is over." Her words were harsh, but I saw the tears of concern in her eyes. "Don't worry, I'm not thinking about him anymore." The next day, Emma and I were driving along the highway when an unfamiliar number called me 3 times. I finally picked up, only to hear Ethan's hoarse voice on the other end. From the sound of it, he'd been chain smoking. "Olivia, where are you?" My tone was indifferent. "Do you need something?" He paused, as if thrown off, and I could faintly hear the sound of planes taking off in the background. "Are you serious about this? You cleared out everything from your dad's apartment. Are you really doing this?" Emma let out a cold laugh and muttered, "Idiot. What else did you think? Did you think I said we're done just for fun?" The boarding announcement for Ethan's flight sounded in the background, followed by Sophia urging him to hurry. The call ended abruptly. "Stop being dramatic. We'll talk when I get back." I knew their journey had begun. Although I no longer kept in touch with either of them, I had occasionally come across Sophia's short video posts. Unsurprisingly, they were all about showing off their relationship. Perhaps she had guessed it was me. Sophia visited my profile every day. After our last encounter, she even took the initiative to follow me and remind me to like her posts. Every single video was tied to Ethan. Emma found it utterly ridiculous. Since the breakup, I hadn't been checking short video platforms much. But when I opened it today, the first video that popped up was one of Sophia's. It was a photo of Ethan and me holding hands and hugging at the airport, captioned, "Time to make up for regrets." The video went viral because many fans and netizens were captivated by the push and pull drama between Ethan and Sophia, who were each other's first love and exes. In every video, Ethan cooperated wholeheartedly, the happiness and joy in his eyes clearly genuine. I blocked his account, and my phone was snatched away by Emma. "Why are you even watching them?" "We're here, look." I lifted my eyes, and the snow had stopped at some point. Everything seemed frozen in time. Thick snow blanketed the rooftops and coated the tree branches like clouds. A winter wonderland, straight out of a fairy tale. It felt like I had stepped into one of my favorite childhood cartoons, a magical moment free from worries, as though I was truly living in peace. A snow train, scenic trails, parades, and a bonfire party. When night fell, the town lit up like a shimmering jewel. "Live, look, oh, I wish I could live here forever." I smiled, scheduled a post for my social media, and playfully patted Emma's head. "Then I'll stay here with you." A few close friends, drinking under the moonlight, life's joys were nothing more than this. Slightly buzzed, I suddenly received a call from a long-lost classmate on WhatsApp. The moment Ethan's voice came through, my smile froze. I double-checked. It was indeed the classmate's account. Why are you using this? I bought this account. Speechless, I was about to hang up. Wait, Ethan sounded desperate. I could even hear the sound of him suddenly standing up, along with Sophie sleepily mumbling in the background. When are you coming back? Sophie and I only planned for a 5-day trip. Why would I go back? Ethan sounded frustrated, letting out a helpless sigh. You've been mad long enough, Olivia. Moving out, blocking me, rejecting my friend requests. Aren't you done yet? You ran off to some faraway northern place without telling me anything. Where does that leave me as your boyfriend? Emma and I couldn't help bursting into laughter. Why? Why are you laughing? Who are you with? I straightened my expression. Ethan, if anything I did made you think I was joking, I apologize. But I wasn't joking. And while you're claiming to be my boyfriend, have you considered what Sophie means to you, standing right next to you? You can't have your cake and eat it too. Even a fool knows that. What's wrong? Are you worse than a fool, Ethan? Ethan fell silent, and it seemed like Sophie had gotten up in the background. Nothing said over the phone counts. You're still angry, so I won't argue with you now. I had been wondering how Ethan knew I was here in the north, but after seeing my social media post, I couldn't help but be annoyed at my own stupidity. Not only had I tagged the location, but I'd also forgotten to set the post to hide it from certain people. After reposting it with updated settings, Emma and I snuggled up and went to sleep. I never expected Ethan to abandon his trip with Sophie and change his plans to find me. He didn't seem prepared at all. Dressed only in a padded coat, his neck exposed to the biting cold, he showed up at the door with Sophie. It wasn't hard for him to find me. He knew Emma's name, and Emma was well connected in this area. Asking around wouldn't take long. Still, seeing these two frostbitten figures suddenly appear outside the window was quite jarring. I glanced at the clock, sighed, and looked apologetically at Emma. Sorry, looks like we won't make it to the sunrise or the boiling water trick we planned. It was 4 a.m., and we had planned to head out. But I had absolutely no intention of going outside to meet Ethan. Emma was so angry she ground her teeth. No worries. The sun rises every day, but it's rare to see such a frozen pair of scumbags. Yes, Ethan had come with Sophie. The two of them were standing outside, their noses red from the cold. Sophie looked even worse. Her face was visibly frostbitten. I saw her irritably pull at Ethan's sleeve, whisper something, then hesitate and turn to leave. Ethan seemed to sense something, lifting his gaze directly toward my window. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. His hair, eyebrows, and lashes were frosted with ice, his nose bright red, and his lips purple, a clear sign he couldn't take the cold much longer. In the past, I would have rushed out in a heartbeat to bring him inside for warmth, heart aching for him. But now, the love was gone. Do you think he'll freeze to death? I pulled my gaze away and burrowed back under the covers, hoping to catch up on sleep. We had been playing too hard these past few days, and since I wasn't planning to go out today anyway, I decided to take the chance to rest. Probably not, he'll leave soon enough. Half asleep, I was shaken awake by Emma. Daylight had broken. Hey, looks like we can head out after all. Rubbing my eyes, I saw no sign of Ethan outside the window. Don't bother looking. He fainted from the cold and got carried away. What a shame. Why didn't he just freeze to death? Emma cracked sunflower seeds, entirely unconcerned. I casually grabbed a piece of bread, not giving the matter much thought. I ran into Sophie at the snow gallery. She was no longer the disheveled mess from the early morning, now bundled up in a high neck sweater and scarf under her coat. It wasn't Ethan standing beside her, though. When she saw me, she seemed surprised and suggested we talk privately. You know, I really owe Olivia for this, she said, her gaze soft as she looked at the tall man standing nearby. I raised an eyebrow. How so? Sophia chuckled lightly. If it weren't for Olivia, Ethan wouldn't have taken a detour to bring me here, and I wouldn't have met my boyfriend. Emma leaned closer, intrigued. Wait, he's your boyfriend? What about Ethan? Sophia adjusted her scarf. Ethan. Oh, he's just an old flame I happened to run into again. Funny enough, we reconnected at Olivia's birthday party. Her deliberate provocation wasn't lost on me. I remembered that day well. It was 1.5 years ago, right after Ethan had recovered and was discharged from the hospital. You haven't thought about getting back together with Ethan? Then why? Sophia abruptly cut me off, glancing nervously at the man nearby. Please watch what you say. There's absolutely nothing between Ethan and me. I wouldn't want my boyfriend to misunderstand. Emma and I exchanged a look, both of us clearly shocked. Well, Miss Sophia, your love life sure moves fast. She caught the subtle sarcasm in my tone but didn't seem fazed at all. What do you know about love? It's not about how long it lasts. Sure, Ethan's good looking, but I've grown tired of him. And let's be real, his height doesn't measure up. Who in their right mind would pick the shorter one? I hadn't realized Sophia cared so much about height, but she wasn't wrong. Ethan's 5'11" frame seemed modest compared to her new boyfriend, who towered at nearly 65. Ethan's call came through right then. Sophia glanced at her phone indifferently and hung up without hesitation. She began fiddling with her nails, speaking in a carefree tone. To be honest, with the way Ethan acted yesterday, I thought for sure you two were getting back together. Who would have thought nothing happened? That really cracks me up. Liv, how about we make a bet? Ethan must regret ignoring you now. I couldn't help but think Sophia was a bit eccentric, maybe even a little unhinged. If you don't like Ethan, then why did you keep provoking me before? She laughed. Oh, because it's fun. Of course, isn't it satisfying to feel superior in front of your ex's new partner? And besides, Ethan's family situation is a mess. His parents divorced when he was 5, and he hasn't heard from his birth mother since. Now his dad's married to a younger woman who just had a son. Ethan doesn't get along with his dad, so when his dad dies, he probably won't even inherit half of the estate. Someone who's been starved of love since childhood? No thanks. Emma and I were both stunned, but before we could say anything, Sophia turned and left. I bet Ethan hasn't told you any of this, huh? Well, now you know. Anyway, I've got a date to catch. I wondered if Ethan would regret trusting Sophia so much, sharing his deepest wounds with her, only for her to tear them open so carelessly. He would regret it, of course. Sure enough, not long after, I received a text from Sophia. You win. Over the next few days, I didn't see Ethan and Sophia together again. Not that I did much, really. All I did was answer Ethan's call on my phone after Sophia hung up on him. Whether Ethan heard anything or how much he heard, I couldn't say. It was clear, though, that Sophia wasn't ready to completely sever ties with Ethan. While sorting through some old accounts, I noticed his biggest expenses were things he bought for himself and money he spent on Sophia. But Sophia turned out to be quite the prophet. Ethan did seem to regret it. This week alone, he'd passed out from the cold 3 times and ended up in the hospital. The story quickly spread around the area. Some of the locals would joke about it every day, saying, "Did that guy who froze himself get discharged yet?" Discharged? Oh man, then he's probably going to pass out again tonight. Keep your ears open, folks. If you hear something, go check it's still a human life. After all, there were plenty of people who didn't know the full story, but Emma and I couldn't help overhearing bits of gossip here and there. Damn it, Ethan. That idiot is determined to make your life hell. By midday, Ethan was once again dragging himself toward the door, his heavy footsteps uneven. Seriously, he's here again? In just a week, he'd lost all color in his face, which now looked ghostly pale. I pressed my lips together, deciding to open the door. Emma anxiously tried to stop me, but I reassured her with a glance. It was around 5 in the morning, and a few tourists and locals were gathering at the open grounds nearby, ready to catch the sunrise. Hearing the door open, Ethan weakly lifted his eyes. The moment he saw me, a spark of light returned to his gaze. For just a fleeting moment, I was reminded of the Ethan I first met back in the most innocent days of school. I was sitting at my desk when he walked into the classroom. He was wearing a red hoodie and black sweatpants, smiling brightly, his eyes sparkling. A ray of sunlight had just broken through the window, landing perfectly on him. Originally, I was resting my head on the desk, but for some inexplicable reason, I sat up straight and looked ahead. That one glance, and my heart skipped a beat. Ethan, as expected, knew exactly how to handle me. He walked over with a bright smile, his eyes shining, and leaned in close to me. His movements were bold, as if intending to pull me into an embrace. But as I stepped back, his motion froze awkwardly. Moments later, he sniffled and spoke in a casual tone. "Are you still mad?" I ignored his question. "Where is she?" Ethan knew exactly who I was referring to. Mentioning Sophia instantly made him turn cold. "No idea. Why are you bringing her up?" He softened his tone, attempting to reach for my hand, but I dodged him again. Still upset about me and her? Come on, I'll apologize. It's been weeks since we've seen each other in person. Don't you miss me? I stood there, avoiding all physical contact, staring straight into his face and his eyes. Ethan, we broke up. Why are you here now? What do you want? Silence lingered for a moment, and I ran out of patience, turning to leave. I wanted to see you. Olivia, I miss you. I just wanted to see you. I don't want to break up. The last sentence came out with great difficulty, as if it stomped on his pride and dignity. Perhaps my mockery was too obvious, because Ethan's face rarely showed embarrassment like it did now. Olivia, I cut him off coldly. Now that you've seen me, you can leave. And by the way, when I said we were breaking up, it wasn't up for negotiation, it was a notification. Ethan's embarrassment morphed into obsession. This was a side of him I had seldom seen. His possessiveness was something I was already aware of. During our time together, even though he was constantly flirting and crossing boundaries with others, he wouldn't tolerate me having even a casual male acquaintance in my contacts, not even a coworker. That had troubled me for a long time. I knew he was obsessive, he had admitted it himself, but I had never witnessed this extreme side of him. Why do you want to break up? Emma, my best friend, scoffed. Why? Do you really not have a clue? Ethan's obsessive look faded, replaced by a smirk. Is this all because of Sophia? When did you become so petty? And besides, Olivia, you promised you'd love me forever. I couldn't help but laugh. Do you love me? Ethan frowned, instinctively reaching into his pocket for a cigarette. Of course I love you. Why are you overthinking this? Haven't we always been fine? He genuinely seemed confused as he lit the cigarette. In that moment, I found him utterly repulsive. That's only what you think. Yes, you never hold back when it comes to saying you love me, but I'm the only one who knows that you've never truly taken my words to heart. You don't notice my moods, nor do you understand my feelings, or maybe you just don't care enough to bother. You know perfectly well that loving someone means not making them upset, yet you only care about not upsetting Sophia. Whenever we have conflicts, you never back down or admit fault, even when you know you're the one to blame. You always think I'm just being unreasonable. My feelings have never mattered to you. Do you even remember what you said when you left me alone on our 1-year anniversary to go shopping with Sophia? Ethan was silent. Of course, he didn't remember. I sighed. You said, Olivia, stop being dramatic and overly sensitive. Ethan was my first love, the first person I fell for after discovering what love was. For our relationship to end up here, it would be a lie to say I didn't blame him. But Ethan, I'm so tired. You've killed the pure, passionate, and untainted love I had for you. I'm so exhausted that I don't even have the energy to blame you anymore. Please leave and don't come looking for me again. I really don't want to see you anymore. Ethan truly left. It was to be expected. For someone as proud and obsessed with face-saving as he was, even coming to see me was already a stretch for him. After that, I didn't see Ethan again for nearly half a year. Emma and I were staying at a ski resort in Aspen for one last night before heading south to enjoy the ocean. It was on the way to this new destination that I encountered Ethan's sister, Ava. By some coincidence, she was seated right next to me. She looked at me several times while holding her phone, then smiled with some surprise. You're Ethan's girlfriend, aren't you? You're so beautiful. When I didn't respond, she seemed to realize and extended her hand. Oh, hi, I'm Ethan's sister, his actual sister. It was through Ava's words that I learned about Ethan's recent state. Apparently, after our breakup, he had been in a slump for quite a while. During that time, he was constantly looking up stuff about girls' emotions and what they care about, taking notes late into the night. Just from that, I could tell he'd had a fight with his girlfriend, she sighed. But he never told the family anything. Your photo was something I had to go out of my way to get. I scrutinized the photo closely. It was a collage of pictures pieced together into one. Ethan and I had never taken a photo together, and he rarely took photos of me. This photo must have been one of those I accidentally left behind when I moved out. Ethan's sister, Ava, shared a lot with me, stories ranging from Ethan wetting his pants as a child and crying for his mom to the complex dynamics of their family. Ethan had completely fallen out with his father, but the man still showed a shred of decency by dividing a small amount of money between Ethan and Ava. The money wasn't much, but if they worked hard and lived simply, it would be enough for a modest life. However, due to their parents' divorce when they were young, they had witnessed the fallout from a failed marriage. The siblings didn't share much of a bond either. Their family ties were fragile, to say the least. The grandfather who valued Ethan the most had also passed away suddenly 2 months ago. "Have you made up with Ethan?" Ava asked. "Sigh, he just doesn't know how to love anyone. But from the way I see it, he seems pretty fond of you." I listened to everything she said. Her last 2 sentences before stepping out of the car echoed in my mind. I silently shook my head. Does Ethan truly not know how to love? Then what about his feelings for Sophia? What do those even mean? Perhaps Ava had noticed my train ticket. When she left the car, I spotted Ethan standing alone under the night sky outside the station. When he saw me, he smiled as always, his eyes sparkling. "You're back. That's great. Did you have fun during the trip? I made a reservation. How about we grab some dinner together?" I remained silent and walked past him. The moment my wrist was grabbed, Ethan's voice trembled. Sophia had an unplanned pregnancy and was taken back by her family to have an abortion before being married off far away. I know I messed up. I lacked boundaries. I was an idiot. Please, give me another chance, won't you? When the dazzling diamond ring appeared, I quickly used my coat to block it out. The scene I had once yearned for now felt like something to be avoided like the plague. "Ethan, I believe I made myself clear 6 months ago. I really hope that from now on, we go our separate ways and never see each other again." Ethan's prospective Olivia turned down my proposal. The woman who used to have her world revolve around me seems to have truly been driven away by my own actions. I stood there at a loss. There were so many things I wanted to tell Olivia. I wanted to tell her that I know where I went wrong, that I've learned how to navigate a relationship better, how to truly love her. Honestly, I don't even understand myself. Why did I have to act like Sophia mattered more than Olivia? I deeply regret it. Why was I so caught up in ideas of hierarchy in our relationship? Why was I obsessed with winning? Why did I always push Olivia to lower her head first? Olivia said I didn't love her. Maybe she's right, but I'm so unused to life without her. Every night, in my dreams, at every moment of every day, I can't stop thinking about her. I was 5 years old when my parents divorced. By then, their relationship had already reached its end. The constant fighting and chaos made life terrifying for Ava and me. I hated my mom. She cheated, then left us for 20 years without a word, without a care. I don't even have her contact information. I don't even know if she's still alive. My mom taught me to believe that beautiful women are nothing but deceivers. The love they speak of is all lies, but Olivia was different. When she said she loved me, it was genuine. No matter how much of a jerk I was, no matter how dirty I felt, she still loved me. She had every reason to blame me, to resent me, given how I treated her. But she said she hoped we'd go our separate ways and never meet again. When she said it, her tone and gaze were so calm. But my heart felt as if it had been pierced, and I couldn't stop the tears. I was lost, utterly lost. How can I possibly win her back? It was the news of my father's illness that pulled me away. I didn't want to leave. I could sense this was the last time I'd see Olivia. I wanted to do something, but it felt like there was nothing I could say or do. It seemed like Olivia and I were truly over. I, who always left Olivia with just a view of my back, now stood still, watching her retreating figure. I should have understood long ago Olivia doesn't lie to me. It's my fault. The deathly ill father. The strained relationships with my stepmother and half-brother. I was busy for a very long time. Though my father left a verbal will, it held no legal weight. My stepmother took her son and fought Ava and me in court for ages. The outcome was predictably unfavorable. Everything was divided equally. As for the company, it was handed over to the shareholders. I'm a mess. Running a business is beyond me. My stepmother is lazy and entitled, her son is too young, and Ava prefers her freedom, traveling wherever she pleases. I thought this would be my life forever, but karma always catches up eventually. When the lung cancer diagnosis landed in front of me, I decided not to treat it. The pain has twisted me into something unrecognizable. Olivia, if you were to see the wreck I've become today, would you grant me a shred of pity or compassion?